Hello, welcome to Adisra SmartView course. Today's topic is the SmartView engineering tool. I will guide you through the functionalities while showing you how intuitive and powerful SmartView can be. If you're still not sure about what SmartView is or does, let me explain it. This is a SCADA software, supervisory control and data acquisition, which is used to monitor and control the variables and devices connected on different protocols. This sounds like a very high-level description, but the software can really be used to control so many devices in so many different businesses, and anything can be done with all the data that's part of your process. You can display it on a very nice and custom interface, you can display it on the web, you can store it and create reports, charts, or just track it down in the future. But it can also be used to automate your process, taking actions to prevent accidents, improve productivity, or just predict important maintenances. First, let's check the interface and how it was designed to be mutable, changing its visible elements depending on the context you're in. This improves your learning curve and will make the difference when choosing between different tools on the market. Now let's take a look at the interface. First, let's see the top bar menu here. This is the place where you can make global configuration to your application. You can run your application, you can stop it, you can open the data watcher so you can check current value of the tags. You can also save your project. You can build your application. You can configure what you can see in the interface, like you can hide some elements like a logical tree. I don't want to see the logical tree right now, so I can simply click on the view and just remove it. I can remove the logs, or I can add it again, so it's very flexible. As I said, you can make global configuration in the settings tab. You can create users, profiles to your application, so you can make security enabled. You can also change graphic information. You can configure datetime format. You can save events to the disk. You can configure the port of your viewer, and many other things like the tags. You can see how many tags are created in your project, and you can also specify you want redundancy in your server. So there are many configurations that are global. On the left you can see the navigation tree, and here stands all the documents that you created in your application. So it's very easy to locate them, and it's also very easy to create new documents. You can just go here, right click on each of the documents and create new documents under the tree. For example, tags. Tags are the variables of your application. If you're working with temperature, maybe you want to create a temperature tag. So this is the place to create all the variables. And you can have different types of variables. Let's just create a new one, a new document for tags, and I'm going to insert a new tag. Pay attention to the intuitive interface. When I open tags, you can see that a new tab was created in the top bar menu called tags, and automatically it shows you what can be done in this tab. Working with tags, you can create a new tag, you can remove a selected tag, you can also import or export a list of tags. Let's insert a new one, and these are the types that you can use. Since I'm working with the demo, I have also some other types that I'm going to explain later. But basically you can create a boolean tag, which is a true or false. Maybe a valve is open or just closed. You can have an integer to represent integer value. You can have a float if you have decimals. You have a string, maybe you want to represent just a description. Or you have a datetime. These are the basic values. At datetime you can also store when something happened. But you can also create a specific type, a custom type, and this can be done in the next topic, which is the data types. We're going to see it later. Still on the tags, you can create an array of tags. So maybe you don't have just one temperature, but you want to represent 10 temperatures. So you can have an array of size 1, and you can specify I have 10 elements here. Or you can just represent a matrix, 2 dimensions, and you can also specify the size of each dimension. You can have up to 3 dimensions, and if you chose just 1 dimension, you can see that you can also specify this as dynamic. If you don't know exactly what size you need, let's say you want to keep storing all the temperatures that change in your process, you can just set it as dynamic and keep adding to a vector or to an array, and this value will be added to an unlimited size of array. So this is very flexible. So next topic is the data types. Data types, as I mentioned, you can create specific types for your tag. So maybe you have a tank and you want to represent a tank. So you can just create a new type as tank. I just created one, for example, where it has a valve in, you have a valve out, both Boolean, if it's open or not. You have the temperature as a float. You have less temperatures, which is an array of 5 of floats. You can have a name for your tank. You can have also volume as integer. So you can create many properties under this new data type, and later you can use this data type for a tag. So my new tag one is type tank. One more important feature, as I said, it's very intuitive, is the property grid. We already seen that the top bar menu changes according to the document that is open, which helps you a lot. And you can have also the property grid being changed according to what is selected. For example, my tag is selected. I can configure some stuff for this tag. Let's not save this one. I'm gonna go back to the first tags document, and I'm gonna select now the first tag. Pay attention to the properties grid. As soon as I select it, you can see the property grid is reflecting all the properties that can be configured for this tag. And this is something very intuitive for you. You don't need to learn exactly what properties it does have. You can simply select maybe an element on your screen, like a button, or just a tag. And you can see that the properties grid will change accordingly. And you can see all the properties that you can set. Like you want to give an initial value for this tag. It starts with value 10. You can just put 10 here. You can give a description for this tag. You can specify a mean value or a max value. So it can be from 0 to 10. You can also specify if it's OPC read or write or both or none, if you don't want to make communication as OPC. You can also specify as retentive value. This retentive value means that when the application closes and restarts again, it will keep the previous value. You can also enable alarms for this tag. Maybe I want to set an alarm as high if this value reaches up to 5. So property grid helps you a lot in a very intuitive way. Let's close this document and keep going. Next one is graphics. And this is the place that you're going to be able to create all the interface of your application, all the screens you want to see, and all the elements on the screen you want to add. Let's create a new one. Pay attention again to the top bar menu. Okay. As soon as I created a new document and it's on focus, you can see that the top bar menu added a new tab called graphics, and it contains a lot of objects, like basic objects, geometric, interface objects, advanced objects, charts. You can group elements in one group. You can resize your elements. You can move this index, like you can put something on the back of your screen or maybe something to the front. You can align them on the left, on tops, on centers. You can evenly space on horizontal or vertically. So a lot of things can be done, and it's very easy for you to learn. Again, let's put just a button, for example. Pay attention to the property grid. It already changed it for a button. You can see all the configuration for this button, the size of it, maybe the text you want to show. Maybe it's going to be a save button. We can change the font size. You can change foreground color. I want to make it red with the borders a little blue. I want to change the border thickness to 4. So very easy again to use, and you can play with it. You're gonna see the objects being changed as soon as you change the properties here. And this is a preview for what you're gonna see when the runtime starts. Let's close it. Now let's take a look. We have services. Services is a portion of code that you can execute under some condition. Let's say you want to save a text file every time something happens, and you avoid your code to be duplicated in your application. So the triggers, you can create like an interval, something that's gonna happen every a few seconds. For example, this interval, every 5 seconds, I want to execute a service or maybe an expression that I'm gonna configure right now. You can write down the expression here or just call the service. And you have other options, like a calendar. I want to execute this every day or every week. Let's select week. I want every Mondays and Wednesdays something to be executed, or just a service, or monthly. At the end of the month, I want to generate a report. You can also execute something under some condition, or just trigger when a value changes in a tag. I want to execute something. You can also have alarms. The alarms are something that are going to be triggered in your application. We already saw that under the tags we can configure alarms. So as soon as we put the tags here that are configured to generate alarms, we can have it generating in your disk, and this can be viewed from a month. For example, next month I want to see everything that happened the month before. So we can have the history of the alarms in your system. Every time the temperature trespassed a specific value, like 100 degrees, it's going to be stored here, and you can have an alarm object in your graphics, and this is going to be showing you the history of the alarms. Or you can just have an online alarm. So you just have to configure the tag to raise an alarm and just add the alarm object to your screen. So you don't need to add a spreadsheet here. Next one is history. You can use it to save the history of a tag. Let's just add a new document here and you understand better. For example, let's insert a new history. It's based on a tag, so you need to add a tag to this item. And you can save it to the disk. You can say how many days you want to keep it. And these saves can be done on tag change or in a frequency, how often you want this to be saved. Let's say every 5 seconds I want to save this tag. You can add a trend object to a screen and just see how this tag changed during the last days. Next one is the recipes. Recipes are a nice feature. You can just switch between production. Let's say you have multiple products and you want to change the products during the day. So you can create different recipes for them. And for one tag, for example, you can have different values. So temperature for this product A must be around 50 degrees, but for product B it's 100 degrees, for example. So you just create different recipes, and you can trigger save or trigger load, and the tag is gonna be changing depending on the recipe that you are loading. You can have reports. Just let's add a new document for it. You can insert a chart to a document, you can insert a table, maybe an image. You can align them, apply bullets, numbering. You can put tags on the document, just use the @ sign. And you can specify the path that you want to save it, the size of the page, if it's portrait or landscape, and just trigger to generate the reports. The output can be a file or it can go to the printer. Let's close it. Next one's the database. The database allows you to connect to a relational database. You can specify the connection string. You can specify the actions you want to do it. If it's read or write. You can apply a retry interval. You can specify a timeout. And you can create queries. You can create an insert. Let's just add a new one here. So you can create a query over a table. You can specify, after you put the connection string, you can filter all the tables on this database. You can specify a key, maybe the value you want to change, the quality, and whatever you specify here, this will be synchronized with the database, and so on. So you can select stuff from the database or just update them. Next one is tunneling. Let's create a document. This feature allows you to copy a value from one direction to another direction. It can be bidirectional, like this one selected, but you can specify from left to right or right to left. So in case, let's say it's bidirectional, and I have two tags configured here, if one tag changes value, the other tag receives the value, and the other way as well. You can create drivers. You can specify one from this list, or you can use the OPC clients. Let's just create one example here. Let's say you have a Modbus controller and you need to communicate with that. Just insert a document, specify the IP address, the port it's being used. You can say that I'm gonna read and or write. So you can just put a tag on it to trigger the read and to trigger the write. Or you can specify it on a interval, like every 5 seconds I want to read whatever is in there, and you can specify for the write that whenever the tag that is here changes, I want to write the tag, I want to write the memory. So here you can put your temperature, you can specify the address, where it is in the controller and the type of it, and just save it. So whenever the tag changes, you're gonna be updating this specific address on the controller. You can also add an image. So you can have a lot of images in your project and use them whenever you want. So this is just a library that we have, but you can add as many images that you want. You can remove from the project, and this is the place to manage them all. You can create your specific function libraries. This one allows you to create your own library. You can write down C# and use anywhere in your application. And maybe this can be used in a different project. You can just move this file to a different project and reuse it. And there are some system functions that are already created by us, and feel free to use it. They are also very helpful. You can generate events by code. You can manipulate the graphics, maybe open a screen or add something to the history, or just get the history of a tag. You can also use some math functions that are already created here. You can generate recipes, reports, just change security. So I have some pre-created functions here that are very useful. Something that I left for later is the OPC Communication. Something is being used a lot in most of the factories, and this can be done if you right-click under the drivers, add a new folder. These are some of the drivers that were already implemented, but you can also have OPC clients. You're going to be needing a client since you'll be connecting to a server, and you can create OPC DA or UA or history DA. The SmartView is also an OPC server, so if you want to do the opposite way, you have an OPC client in some other application, maybe external software, and you want to access all the information that's being held in your application, you can simply connect to OPC server of SmartView, and you can browse through all the tags that are here. And if the tags are enabled, you're going to be able to just connect and maybe change values. You can exchange information from SmartView to different devices. Something that I didn't mention yet, but also really important, is the output windows. We have the search output. Whenever you do a search here for a tag, for example, you're going to see all the places that this tag is configured, maybe under a button, maybe in a service, maybe in a trigger, and this is going to be listed here. You can double click and just access its configuration. You have the engineering log. As soon as you build your application, you can see errors from this window, or maybe when you start running it's going to show all the modules that are starting. And the runtime log is where you can see all the errors that are happening in the runtime, or maybe you just want to debug. Let's say you just created some logic in your button and it's not working as you expected. You can just add a few outputs. For example, let's double click in the functions library. There's one function already created, this one, that calls output. You can put a string and maybe concatenate with a value of a tag, and as soon as you call this function, SVA applications dot output, you can see it's being printed in this runtime log, so you can debug it. And last thing I'm going to show you is the help. Let's just open it. You can browse to learn how to use different elements on the graphics, or maybe how to use the alarm document, maybe the data type, I want to create a new one, images, OPC, how to configure, how to create a recipe. So everything is here, and very useful. Another way to open the help is by clicking the interrogation mark on the properties grid. I'm gonna just give you an example. Let's open a graphic. This screen here, for example. I want to see how a button works. I just click on the button, click on the question mark, and the help just opens the page on the button. So you have access to all the configuration, like some information, configuration like angle, some of the properties, functions, all the scripts, how can it be used. You have a link for those other pages, so it's also very useful, and it's easy to learn. You can just open any documents and just click on the interrogation mark, and you know exactly how to use that object. I hope you enjoyed the video, and stay tuned to the next ones. Bye bye.